If you're going on a cruise, something that you should know is that there are some unspoken rules, best practices, and etiquette that you'll want to be aware of before you get on board your cruise ship. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, whether this is your first cruise or you've been cruising quite a few times, there are definitely some things that we all need to be aware of because after all, the culture on a cruise ship is a little bit different and we are all going to be together for quite a few days and we want the cruise to go as well as possible. Now, don't worry, cruises are a lot of fun, but there are some basic do's and don'ts and cruise ship etiquette. So what I recently did is I asked in the Lifewell Cruise Facebook community, what are some unspoken cruise rules that are either well known or lesser known? I actually got so many comments that I divided them up into about 15 different categories that I will go through. Now, you may know some of these and a few might even seem like common sense, but there are others that will be a complete surprise. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Number one, cell phone etiquette in public spaces on a cruise ship. Now, a few years ago, people didn't really use cell phones on a cruise, but these days people may have a plan, or they may have Wi-Fi calling, or they may be using FaceTime on a cruise ship. So something to remember is just to be mindful that you are in a public space and not to use your cell phone like on speakers so that your cell phone becomes like a walkie-talkie. You don't want everybody to hear your conversation. It really is unpleasant for other people. So try to go to somewhere a little bit private, even if it is on the pool deck. Walk away from people. Don't use it in the hot tub or in the pool, of course. Not only will it keep your conversation private, but it won't disturb others. Now, something else that's an unspoken rule, but really is expected, is if you are in the theater and the show has started, the lights are down, don't go on your cell phone looking at Facebook and scrolling and even texting people. Refrain from that. It really does emit a light and it does disturb others. Number two, when it comes to cruise ship balconies, there are some things that you should not do. If you do have a Bluetooth speaker, do not put the music on loud when you are on the balcony. Now, something else, and this is not often talked about, but it does irk some passengers, is if you are on the balcony, don't peer your head around the partition to look into your neighbor's balcony and cabin. Don't leave your clothing and other items on the cruise ship balcony, in particular when you are out at sea. Not only can it blow away into the sea and you're not supposed to throw anything overboard, so that would be bad, but it is also a fire hazard. If you don't have a sliding door and you have the type of balcony door that opens and closes, be mindful that it doesn't slam because that will disturb others. Now, don't forget that your balcony is never really private, so obviously watch what you do, watch what you wear, and as well, something that you should know is that the balcony door, when it is open, if you do also open your front door to your cabin, it will create a wind tunnel, so you want to avoid that. Number three, when it comes to the cabins and hallways, something that you'll want to avoid is any connecting cabins because you can actually kind of hear the people in the next room. And even in any cabin, just to let you know, the walls are not so thick or noise proof that you can't hear people if they are talking or doing anything very loudly. Now, when it comes to going in and out of your cabin, do try to hold onto your cabin door a little bit. Oftentimes those cabin doors are very heavy and they do slam. So especially if it is late at night or early in the morning, try to watch that. When you are walking in the hallway, try to use a little bit of a quiet voice. Sometimes there's nobody else in the hallway, so you forget that people might be sleeping either early in the morning, late at night, or really anytime. Maybe even people are there with children and they're napping. So do try to use a little bit of an indoor voice. And also when you're in the hallways or even on the stairways, if you do want to stop to discuss something, try not to stop right then and there. Now, that is something that I can be guilty of, but do move over to the side so that you don't create like a domino effect with everybody backing up behind you. Now, something else that was mentioned was room service trays. There's a little bit of a debate about this. Should people put their room service trays outside of their door in their hallway or leave them inside your cabin? Well, the truth is that on cruise ships, there are some cruise lines that will tell you to leave it inside your cabin, and other cruise lines will say to leave them outside of the cabin because they actually do have crew that are going down the hallways and picking those items up. So what you can do is simply ask your cabin steward what is preferred. Number 4, moving over to the Lido deck. Don't be a chair hog. Now, this is really something that is very common on cruise ships. You're not supposed to save chairs, but something to be especially aware of is don't save a row of chairs. It really is so impolite. If the other people in your party are not there yet, just don't save any chairs for them, especially if it is for hours on end. Now, when it comes to the hot tub, try not to overstay your welcome. Stay a half an hour, maybe an hour, but do leave time and room for other passengers. And here's a little public service announcement. Make sure that when you are on the pool deck that you do wear flip-flops, sandals, shoes, something, because that pool deck will be very, very hot in the sun. Number 5, elevator etiquette. Now, this is always something that people talk about on cruise ships, but probably it is because there are between 2,000 and 6,000 people on a cruise ship. When we are all trying to take the elevator, usually at similar times, it's only normal, it's going to be crowded, so just expect that. So the first thing I would say is, if at all possible, try to take the stairs when you can. Not everybody can do that, and it's not always the circumstance to do that, so not a problem. But something that you should know is that first people have to get out of the elevator before you go in. Now, I know that this is pretty common practice in elevators, but somehow this does seem to sometimes cause a problem in the elevator. Sometimes we see people doing the opposite. So don't do that. Beyond that, be courteous. If people have pushed the elevator button and have waited before you, allow them to enter before you. Also be courteous to people that are in wheelchairs, in mobility scooters, people that have strollers. Something as well to think about is if people are getting on and they could use some assistance. So for instance, they have a wheelchair, try to hold the button to keep the doors open, or even put your hand over the doors to hold that open for them. Something else not to do when it comes to the elevators is if the elevator is full, don't try to squish in. Just wait for the next elevator. Now, something that shouldn't have to be said, but I'm going to say it, is don't pass gas in the elevator. That is something that a lot of people said, and I can attest that that can be a problem. Number 6, if you're going on a cruise with kids and speaking with elevators, try to let them know that they shouldn't push all of the elevator buttons. It might be fun for them, but it is not fun for everybody else. Now, all joking aside, parents really do need to supervise children on a cruise. Cruising is a great family vacation, but if kids are not in the kids club, do make sure that you are keeping an eye on them, especially in the pool areas. Even though there is a lifeguard, that is not a substitute for supervision, and accidents can happen. Now, when it comes to the dining room and the buffet, make sure that kids aren't running in front of other passengers, in front of the crew members. Try to make sure that kids are sitting with you or that you are with them in the buffet area. Now, if your kids are going to the kids club either during the day or during the evening, make sure that you are aware of the closing hours and you do pick them up on time. And when it comes to the hallways and stairs, do try to give them some reminders to be a little bit quiet, not to jump in the stairway, and not to slide down the banisters. Now, most important if you are cruising with children is make sure that they know that they should never climb any of the railings on a cruise ship, and they should never climb on any of the furniture, in particular if it's near the railings or even on your own balcony. Things not to say and do with your fellow passengers. Now, in my experience, cruisers are really nice people. We're all there to have a good time on a vacation, but there are some things that you should not do. So one of those things is don't engage in any talk of politics and religion, especially at the dining room table with people that you have just met. And speaking of that, no matter what your wardrobe is at home, leave the political message shirts at home. Now, there are a lot of different people on cruises and a lot of different cultures, so it's great to talk with people and find out more about it, but do make sure that you are always respectful. Now, when you're walking in the hallway and you pass other passengers, it's nice to give a little nod, a little smile, or even to say good morning or good evening, and that goes for the passengers as well as the crew. Now, some things that irk a lot of passengers, and I have to say this is not first-time cruisers who do this. This is sometimes avid and repeat cruisers, but it is people that are bragging about their loyalty status or even asking other people, what is your loyalty status? That really does rub people the wrong way, so try to refrain from that. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely great to talk about your experiences, especially if other people are asking, but stay away from being a braggart. Now, 2 other things that you probably don't want to do with your fellow passengers is complain a lot. So nobody likes a big complainer. After all, everybody is there to have a good time on a cruise, and it can really kind of impact the cruise for other people if you are always complaining. And the other thing is, don't ask other people how much they paid for their cruise. It really is an unpleasant conversation. Sometimes people have paid much more than you, and then they're going to feel bad about the price that they paid for their cruise. Or maybe they didn't pay very much for their cruise, but they had their own reasons, and it really just isn't something that people want to discuss. Now, cruise ship staff are known to be very hardworking, to really offer a very good service, but do remember that you do still want to be polite, be respectful, be nice. Don't remove tips. I know that people have different opinions on this, so I'm going to leave it there. But what I will also add is that tipping is something personal, and it is not something to discuss with other passengers on a cruise. Now, if you do have an issue with the service or anything else on a cruise, what you should do is first talk to that crew member, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or if it's just not appropriate, then you can go to guest services or even talk with a supervisor. They will almost always try very hard to make it right. The cruise ship buffet. Now, during the day, a lot of people come from the pool deck to the cruise ship buffet, but something to remember is that you do have to wear a cover up. This is actually a little bit of a rule. The crew may stop you if you do try to go into the buffet in just a bikini, for instance, or they may not. But it is still sort of at least an unwritten rule. You really should cover up, put a t-shirt on, a pair of shorts, a cover up, and make sure that you are wearing shoes, and that is for safety as well. Now, beyond what to wear in the buffet, there are some other things that are good practices and things to know. So firstly, you want to make sure that you're washing your hands when you're going into the buffet or using the hand sanitizer. As well, when you are in the buffet line, try to make sure that you only use the tongs or the serving spoon that is for that specific dish. If you do use it for another item, it can cross-contaminate, so you don't want to do that. Something else as well, and I think if you've been in the buffet, whether it's on a cruise ship or somewhere else, everybody has probably seen this, is you don't want to eat as you go at the buffet. As some people have pointed out, it's not samples. Just put it in your plate and eat it when you do get to the table. Now, by the way, I do have a little tip. If it's very crowded and you are looking for a table, it is pretty usual that people may ask somebody else, can I sit with you? So if you see a table for 4 or for 6 and only 2 people are sitting there, ask if you can sit down. Most of the time people are very nice and it's not a problem at all. Now, after you have eaten, if you decide to go back to the buffet to get more food, it is not a problem at all, but make sure that you do get a new plate. Even though you don't want to necessarily dirty an extra plate, you want to make things easier for the crew. You don't want to do that. It really is for hygiene reasons. So make sure that you do get a fresh plate. And the same thing goes when it comes to drinks, like a cup of coffee or a cup of juice. Don't use the same cup, get a new cup every time. Cruise ports of call. Now, in my opinion, I don't think we talk enough about cruise ports of call because a lot of these things really do surprise a lot of cruisers, especially new cruisers. But when it comes to the cruise ports of call, one thing that is very important is make sure that you know what your ship's time is. Is it the same time as the island or is it different? Make sure that you keep your watch or your phone on the ship's time. As well, make sure that you are never late. Don't be late for the excursion when it leaves. It can and probably will leave without you, but make sure as well that you're always back on time. Not only for the cruise ship and the all aboard time, although that is honestly very important, but make sure as well that you're on time for any meetup times for the excursions, because otherwise you will make other people late. Now, a common question that a lot of people have is, can I bring food off the cruise ship in cruise ports of call? And the answer is usually no, or at least not much. So you can usually bring pre-packaged items off the cruise ship that are really like dry, non-perishable items, but you usually cannot bring fresh meat, fresh cheese, fresh fruit, or fresh vegetables off the cruise ship. Now, usually there is a sign. It isn't necessarily obvious to everybody, but bringing any of these items off the cruise ship can result in a fine or worse. And I know it has happened to some cruise passengers before, so it really is something important to know. When it comes to the drink package, and in particular the alcoholic beverage package, try not to see this as a challenge. So in particular, if you have a drink package that has a limit of 15 drinks a day, it is not a challenge for all you can drink or to try to use all of those up. You obviously want to make sure that you are not ill and that you are still behaving responsibly. the gym and the walking track. Now, the rules at the gym are probably similar to the gym at home. However, not everybody goes much to the gym at home, so there are some things that you probably do want to know. If you use a machine, then what you'll want to do is after you do get off is do go look for the disinfectant and do give that a little bit of a wipe down. If there are some towels to use, make sure that you do grab a towel at the gym. As well, you may see a sign-up sheet for any of the machines, so do take a look and sign up if that is something that you want to do. There may also be a sign or a time limit to be aware of. Maybe you can use the machines for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, for 40 minutes, so do be respectful of that. Now, when it comes to the jogging and walking track, there are some rules and some best practices to be aware of. Now, many cruise ships have a combination walking, jogging track, and generally what you need to do is if you are walking and not jogging is you would stay to one side so that you can allow the joggers to pass. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it is walkers to the right. I'm usually a walker. I should remember that, but I don't. And the other thing is that you want to walk in the same direction as everybody else. So you don't want to walk the opposite way. And if I'm not mistaken, that way is counterclockwise. If I am mistaken, please do let me know in the comments below. Now, when it comes to the casino and the slot machines, if you are not using a machine and you are just there as an observer, especially if it is very busy, do not sit on a chair if you are not playing. Now, if you're going to a show in the theater or in one of the lounges and you are a little bit late and the lights have already gone down and the show has already started, take a seat in the back. Do not try to walk to the front. Not only is it not really great manners, but if you are watching a comedian, you will definitely end up being part of the show. Cruise ship info that every cruiser needs to know. Now, if you're going on a cruise, something that you should know is that there really is cruise lingo or sort of a nautical language. Now, I went into this in detail in another video, so I will leave that at the end of this one. But some things that you should know is firstly, not to call a cruise ship a boat. Not only does it irk other cruise passengers, but honestly, you will get called out by the crew, even possibly an engineer or the captain. Now, when it comes to port and starboard on a cruise ship and remembering which one is which, I know a lot of people struggle with that. I have a little bit of a tip for you. So port has 4 letters like left. So port side is left side, and starboard has, well, more than 4 letters, just like the word right. So that is on the right side. So port side is left side. That is how you can remember. Now, I am going to leave that video all about cruise lingo right after this one, but I would love to hear from you. What are some of the unspoken, well-known or lesser known rules on a cruise ship? Please let me know down in the comments below. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now and happy cruising.